Our special segment this evening is about the new sweatshops in the garment industry. Over the years, the union movement has done much to eliminate sweatshops where workers labor for pittances in dangerous surroundings, but they still exist, and, as there was in the past, there is today a criminal connection. Brian Ross reports from New York City.
This is the center of the fashion industry in this country, 7th Avenue in New York City. At this time of the year, tens of millions of dollars worth of skirts and blouses and dresses move through these streets every day. It's a tough, risky, competitive business. A wrong decision on a pleat, a hem, a color, a fabric can ruin a season or even a business. Millions are gambled on a bow, the cut of a gown, on a designer, and whether next spring's look will actually sell in places like South Bend and Wichita. It all means big money to people in the fashion business. These men make big money out of fashion, but they don't worry about hems or pleats or what will sell in Wichita. According to police and federal authorities, these men are some of the top bosses of the powerful Gambino Mafia family, which over the years has put up hundreds of millions of dollars to take over and control garment businesses, garment trucking companies, and key garment industry unions. Now, authorities say one of the most feared hoodlums in the Gambino family, this man, John Gotti, is pouring mafia money into something a lot of people thought had all but disappeared years ago, the garment industry sweatshop. State investigators say in the last few years, Gotti and other Gambino family hoodlums have been behind the scenes in setting up mafia-financed and mafia-protected sweatshops, as other mobsters have set up peep shows and massage parlors. Hundreds and hundreds of sweatshops have opened in old, run-down loft buildings, hiring illegal aliens and others who can't or won't complain about low wages and dangerous working conditions, making big profits for mobsters who can offer the makers of low and medium-priced garments the cheapest labor in town.
We've moved the sweatshops of Taiwan and Hong Kong right onto our shores.
New York State Senator Franz Leichter says the going wage in the mob sweatshop is about $1.50 an hour, and that there are about 80,000 people now working in these sweatshops.
You have an industry that exists on the fringe of the law where there's people that can't complain, they don't know how to complain, then it's ready-made for organized crime to move in and to exploit that situation.
Every day, fleets of trucks make the run from the garment district to the hidden-away sweatshops. Garment manufacturers who want the cheap labor of the mob sweatshops have to have the right connections and have to hire the right trucking companies at rates that can be as high as $4,000 or $5,000 for one sweatshop run. Even so, it's still cheaper for the manufacturers to send their work to the mob's illegal sweatshops. Investigators say one of the busiest trucking companies in the sweatshop business is run by Thomas Gambino, the son of the late boss of the Gambino crime family. Thomas Gambino has no criminal record and denies he has anything to do with organized crime. Gambino would not talk with us, but investigators say he is one of the masterminds of the sweatshop rackets. Investigators say under mob protection, sweatshops operate in open violation of health, labor, and fire laws. Right next door to a fire station in Lower Manhattan, on the 4th floor of a building owned by a company tied to the mob, what is regarded as one of the most notorious sweatshops in the city. Women work at their sewing machines in a cluttered loft, the aisles and exits illegally blocked by piles of fabric and refuse. The operator of the sweatshop says he knows the place is dangerous.
Well, if there was a fire here, nobody could get out this door. What do you want me to say?
New York Senate investigators say some of the worst of the sweatshops are making clothing for many of this country's leading retailers. This two-piece polka dot outfit carrying the Sears Junior Bazaar label was sold at Sears stores for $25. Investigators say it was made in a sweatshop in Spanish Harlem where workers are paid $1.25 a dress. Sears says it does not knowingly buy from sweatshops.
Free enterprise.
The president of the Federation of Apparel Manufacturers, Eli Elias, says garment makers don't condone sweatshops, but they have become an economic fact of life in the garment business.
This is a competitive world. You can't make an angel out of a manufacturer. He's a human being. He's got his own problems.
In 1911, the horrible fire at the Triangle Shirtwaist Company killed 146 workers, most of them women, and led to a long effort to get rid of the sweatshop. Now, 70 years later, a bunch of New York City mobsters is bringing back the sweatshop, and no one seems to be doing much about it. Brian Ross, NBC News, New York.
Said an investigator, a torch that lighted up the whole industrial scene. The Triangle Shirtwaist Fire in New York City 70 years ago next Wednesday. It resulted in the deaths of 146 young girls, trapped in a building, locked against their escape. Women fainted and policemen wept, and it was said the Triangle girls will never be forgotten. Laws were passed, unions were organized, yet today sweatshops are back in fashion. The Labor Department estimates tens of thousands of them work in all over the country, 50,000 in 1,500 sweatshops in New York City alone. And as Richard Wagner reports, fire may be the least of their fears.
They're dirty, they're dangerous, they're illegal, and they run wide open in New York City. Over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a sweatshop explosion here, chiefly because of the soaring number of illegal aliens in this city. The sweatshop operators ignore health and safety codes. They laugh at wage and hour laws. They keep no records. Time cards are as scarce as fire doors. The average pay for 8 hours work, $15.
I wouldn't work for that little bit of money. Nobody. But then I'm here legally. Right. You understand? I'm not an illegal alien. On this avenue alone, you got 100 of them. Between here and 181st Street, you got 100 sweatshops.
Sweatshops operate so openly here that many blatantly advertise for workers in the native language of the exploitable alien. Some sweatshop operators have been in business for so long and are so blasé about it, the arrival of a television crew is no cause for alarm. Other sweatshops, though, are less hospitable toward visitors. Do these workers, these victims, complain? Almost never. They and the bosses are well aware of the threat of deportation. And the money, meager though it is, often looks good compared to what they've come from.
They are all right now because they know that what they are making is enough to send money to their countries.
State Senator Franz Leichter is conducting an investigation of the booming sweatshop industry. A sweatshop worker protecting her identity told, through an interpreter, what happens when workers do complain to the boss.
If they have any kind of complaint, they said, if you don't like it, leave it. Somebody else will take it.
Ophelia is 23 and single. She came here from Honduras a year and a half ago. She says she's here legally, but when asked, declined to show a green immigration card to back up her claim. The per capita income in Honduras is $480 a year. Ophelia told us she makes about $100 for sewing 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. She's paid by the piece. She knows the minimum wage is $3.35 an hour, but says she was told by her boss that the minimum applies only to hourly workers, not piece workers. Informed that this was not true and that she was being exploited, Ophelia said she needs the money. This man operates a sweatshop. He maintains he's not getting rich doing it. He says he pays $350 a month rent for his tiny two-room shop. He employs about 20 people and says his shop turns out about 1,000 dresses a month. He claims that after paying his workers, his rent, and his utilities, he's left with $500 or $600 a month for himself. Of course, he pays no taxes. City officials say New York loses millions of dollars every year because illegal aliens live here, work here, use city services, but pay no taxes. Who's profiting from sweatshop labor? State Senator Franz Leichter points his accusing finger at unscrupulous jobbers, small garment firms which subcontract much of their work, and at truckers, he says, have ties to organized crime. A half dozen of the jobbers are located in this building in New York's garment district. All refuse to be interviewed concerning Senator Leichter's charges.
Well, you got a lot of pious, hypocritical answers. Oh, we don't know where our goods are being manufactured. We don't know what the conditions are. Obviously, they do. They know because they're paying so little for labor that they must know that they're in a situation where they're benefiting by exploiting these people.
This truck loading dresses from the window of a Manhattan sweatshop is from one of the trucking companies Senator Leichter accuses of charging exorbitant amounts to move goods. The senator also says the truckers involved intimidate the sweatshop operators, preventing them from changing trucking companies.
When you have a business that's on the fringe of the law or beyond the pale of the law, as this sweatshop industry is, where people can't complain, then there's an opportunity for organized crime to move in. And that's exactly what's happened. They moved in through the truckers. We've identified some of the truckers who have been identified in official reports as having organized crime connections. And the truckers are making a fantastic amount of money off the sweatshops, so much that they have actually gone out and organized and set up these sweatshops because they can then make money off them.
All the trucking firms named by Senator Leichter have denied any connection with organized crime or being involved in any illegal activity. Goods made by garment manufacturers accused of sweatshop practices wind up on the racks of some of this country's major retailers and are likely to continue to as long as the sweatshops flourish. And that may be a long time. Federal, state, and local inspection and enforcement agencies have nowhere near the personnel needed to shut the sweatshops down. And the exploited workers, in large part, seem willing to continue to labor in silence. Richard Wagner, CBS News, New York.
That's our report for this Wednesday.